There are numerous reports online of non-resident US LLC entrepreneurs who have had their US bank accounts completely frozen, apparently for no reason. But the truth is, there is a reason for it, and it is very easy to avoid in most cases. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I have personally managed to maintain US LLC bank accounts for two separate US LLCs as a non-resident of the US. And I'm going to give you a checklist of 3 simple things that you need to make sure that you remember at all times in order to keep your US LLC bank accounts. And as long as you do these 3 things, you're not going to have any issues. If you're looking to set up a US LLC, we now do this in-house at GenZone, and it is the fastest way I have seen anywhere out there to get everything done for your LLC. That means you get your company set up, your bank account, as well as your EIN, which usually takes quite a long time, in as little as 48 hours. We will just send it to you as a PDF, and then you're ready to get your banking, to get your Stripe account, and have your LLC fully operational with no connection to the US. And we also take care of all of the required filings when they are due. And we also give you a connection to a tax advisor in the US who specializes in helping expats and non-US based LLC founders. So if you're interested in that, you can click the first link down below in the description. So first things first, before we get into the requirements, how do you even get US banking? So in most cases, to get US banking, you're going to need some kind of a US structure. So you probably can't get this if you have like a foreign company, or for yourself personally. Non-US entities may be able to open bank accounts with Mercury, the digital bank that I mainly use, and I'll cover in more detail in a moment, but only for certain categories, specifically for startups, for e-commerce companies, and venture capital companies. But there will be restrictions, as in you won't be able to send international wires with that. So if you really want US banking, you probably want to set up a US LLC for that. Now, talking about the kinds of banks you'll be able to open with. Now, in some cases, if you're not in the US, you will be able to open with regular banks. So we're talking about Chase, we're talking about JP Morgan, we're talking about Citi, these kinds of banks. But in most cases, you're not going to be able to do that, because they will probably require you to A, visit the US physically, and B, have quite high initial deposits, ranging anywhere from $25,000 up to $100,000. And crucially, they will often also require a US physical address. So if you legitimately do physical business in the US, you have a physical office there, then yes, you might be able to get one of these traditional banks. But for most people, what you're going to be using are digital banks who don't have a lot of these requirements. So the digital banks mean banks like Mercury, which is the best one in my opinion, and what most people tend to use. You also have Relay Finance. So we'll mainly talk about now how to make sure that you're able to maintain these particular accounts with your US LLC, because even these accounts can be closed unless you meet their specific requirements, which not a lot of people talk about. So the biggest key requirements that you want to make sure is that you have US clients and or some US operations. So on the tax side, as you might be aware, if you don't have any US operations, you don't have any US employees, you don't live in the US, you're not going to be liable for any corporate taxes in the US. However, if you don't also have any clients in the US, you may not be able to keep your bank account open. So that is why often for non-residents of the US, the LLC makes a lot of sense if you don't have any US connection. However, for banks, for example, for Mercury, they literally list this. You need to have some connection to the US in order to keep this bank account open. So this kind of creates a situation where for the tax side, you don't want to have any connection to the US, but for the bank account, you need to have some connection to the US. So how do you make sure that you meet the bank's requirements, but you don't meet the tax requirements, essentially? Well, it's very simple. For Mercury and for these banks, US connection includes US clients. But crucially, for the tax side, US clients are not counted as US operations. So crucially, to maintain your US bank account without creating any tax obligations, you want to make sure that your business has at least some clients in the US, as in you sell to the US. I've personally received emails from Mercury asking me to verify my connection to the US. And in fact, they might ask you this when you are actually opening the bank account. But I mentioned that there's 3 requirements. This was the biggest one, and the one that people mostly miss. The second requirement is that you are not in a risky industry. There are certain industries that banks in general just don't like. It's just how it is. It's how it is in pretty much every single country. Also, if you frequently deal with physical cash, Mercury is probably not the right choice for you because it is entirely a digital bank, so they probably won't accept you. And the third requirement is that you're not from a prohibited country. And for Mercury, this list is actually quite long. So you have the usual suspects like North Korea, Afghanistan, Syria, things like that. But it also includes many other places. For example, the Philippines. If you live in the Philippines, you aren't going to be opening an account. Russia, Ukraine, Croatia, Cambodia. So I'll leave the list down below in the description. A lot of these countries are going to be countries that you can expect to have problems with banking with, but Mercury seems to have a list that is much longer than this. Luckily, places like the UAE are allowed. I personally am a resident in the UAE, run 2 separate US LLCs with no issues whatsoever, but make sure that you are not residing in any of these countries on this list, and you should not have any issues. So I hope that clarifies things. If you want to open a Mercury account and you want to get $250 for completely free, you can open your Mercury account for your US LLC using my link down below in the description, and make sure to deposit at least $10,000 into the account within the first 90 days. And if you do that, you will get a referral bonus for yourself and of course also for me of $250 for doing absolutely nothing. So again, if you're looking to set up a US LLC, check out the first link down below, Genzo, where you can get everything done in just 48 hours. And after that, click the second link to open up your Mercury bank account and make sure you have at least some customers in the US and you're not going to have any problems with your US bank account. I hope that is helpful. And with that, I will see you in the next video.